Rome loved des roses. But Rome also loved bloodlines. To rule, you needed more than victories. You needed ancestry, the right family name. That was why Gaius Octavius, the man the world would one day call Augustus, lived a life built on illusion. For beneath the marble of his triumphs, beneath the propaganda carved into coins and monuments, lay a secret he never wanted Rome to see. The question is, why? The story begins not in palaces, but in shadows. Octavius was not born into the noblest branch of Rome's families. He came from the Octavii, a respected but provincial line from Velletri, south of Rome. They were equestrians, not senators. They were wealthy enough, but not of the kind that commanded destiny. In the brutal politics of the late Republic, that was a weakness. Yet fate placed him in the orbit of his great-uncle, Julius Caesar. And Caesar changed everything. When Octavius was still a teenager, Caesar noticed his sharp mind, his quiet ambition. He took him along on campaigns, introduced him to the world of politics, and, most importantly, named him heir. But here lies the danger. Rome did not want kings, and it despised men who grasped at power through ancestry rather than merit. Caesar's name was both a blessing and a curse. When Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, 44 BCE, the young Octavius was just 18 years old. Rome was a cauldron of chaos. Antony rallied Caesar's veterans. Brutus and Cassius fled, raising legions in the east. The Republic seemed ready to devour itself again. Into this storm stepped Octavius. Thin, sickly, untested. No one believed he could stand against seasoned men like Antony. Yet he did something astonishing. He seized Caesar's legacy, claiming not only his name, but his bloodline. He styled himself Caesar's son, not just his heir. But here's the secret. By birth he was not. The truth was that Octavius' claim came through adoption. Caesar had written it into his will, but adoption in Rome was powerful. It rewrote identity. Overnight, Octavius was no longer a provincial boy from Velletri. He was Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. And with that name, doors opened. Veterans swore loyalty. Senators grudgingly acknowledged him. Rome itself bent under the weight of Caesar's ghost. Still, the doubt remained. His enemies whispered, "He is not truly Caesar's blood." Antony mocked him as a child playing at power. The old nobility sneered at his provincial roots. And Octavian knew, if he showed his true origins, if Rome remembered where he came from, his authority would shatter. So he buried the past. Coins minted in his reign depicted him as the son of a god, Divi Filius, the divine heir of Caesar. Statues showed him with the calm face of Apollo, eternal youth, untouched by sickness. The propaganda machine erased Velletri, erased the Octavii, erased the frail boy he had once been. Rome never saw the mask slip, but behind the mask, Octavian became something more dangerous than any general. He became a master of appearances. He made alliances, then broke them. He played Antony and Lepidus against each other in the Second Triumvirate. He used Caesar's veterans, then discarded them when they grew restless. He spoke always of restoring the Republic, but step by step he killed it. And all the while, he clung to the secret. His origins were not noble enough, not divine enough, not Roman enough for the empire he meant to build. But the question remains, was this deception merely survival? Or was it something darker? Did Augustus hide his origins not only because they were humble, but because there was something in them Rome could never know? The whispers of that secret echo, even now. The Senate chambers of Rome were filled with smoke and whispers. After the murder of Julius Caesar, power was scattered like broken glass. Mark Antony believed himself Caesar's natural heir in power, if not in name. He mocked Octavian as nothing but a boy who owes everything to fortune. Others dismissed him as weak, too frail to command armies, too provincial to lead Rome. But Octavian understood something they did not. Rome believed in images more than truth, and he would control the image. He declared himself Divi Filius, son of the divine Julius. He marched into Rome not with legions at first, but with Caesar's will. He reminded the veterans of Caesar's promises of land and wealth, shaming Antony for delaying them. He paraded Caesar's comet, the Julian star, across coins as proof that the gods had raised Caesar to the heavens. And by linking himself to that divinity, he turned whispers of illegitimacy into a weapon. It was a bold gamble, because legally he was just the adopted son of Caesar. But image was stronger than law. Still, Antony was not his only threat. The liberators Brutus and Cassius had carved out power in the east, raising armies and resources. Civil war loomed again, and here Octavian made his move. He forced an alliance. The second triumvirate was born: Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus. Together, they promised vengeance for Caesar. Together, they unleashed the most brutal wave of proscriptions Rome had seen since Sulla. Senators, knights, wealthy men, all marked for death. Names were posted, fortunes seized, enemies slaughtered. Even Cicero, Rome's great orator, fell to their knives. Blood bought Octavian legitimacy. But beneath the alliances, beneath the propaganda, the problem remained. He was no general like Caesar. He had no ancestral glory to silence his rivals. He was, at his roots, still Gaius Octavius of Velatri. So he let Antony play the warrior. Antony marched east, chasing glory against the Parthians. Octavian stayed in Italy, weaving himself into the Senate, into the people's trust. He built veterans' colonies, secured loyalty through land and wealth, and reshaped his image as the man of Rome itself. But Antony's choices gave Octavian his greatest weapon. In the east, Antony fell into the orbit of Cleopatra, queen of Egypt. To Rome, she was a temptress, a foreign queen, a rival to Roman tradition. Octavian seized the opportunity. He painted Antony not as Caesar's heir, but as Cleopatra's slave. Not a Roman consul, but a king's fool. This was more than politics, it was propaganda warfare. Octavian unleashed poems, speeches, and coins showing Antony enthralled by the queen. He told Rome Antony planned to make Alexandria the new capital, that he wanted Caesar Ion, Cleopatra's son by Caesar, to rule in Rome instead of him. Whether true or not didn't matter. Rome believed. But here lies the secret twist. The more Octavian demonized Antony, the more he silenced questions about himself. While Antony's loyalty to Rome was put on trial, Octavian's own origins faded into shadows. His provincial birth, his adoption, his lack of true, noble blood, none of it mattered when compared to Antony's betrayal of Roman pride. The war between Octavian and Antony was not just about power. It was about legitimacy. Antony still mocked him as a pretender, a sickly boy elevated by Caesar's will alone. And Antony had a stronger claim to noble blood. If Antony won, the secret of Octavian's fragile origins would be exposed to all. So Octavian gambled everything. In 31 BCE, at Actium, his fleets clashed with Antony and Cleopatra. Octavian was no warrior, but he had Agrippa, a commander loyal and brilliant. The battle ended in disaster for Antony. Cleopatra fled, Antony followed, and their power shattered. Months later, they took their own lives. Octavian walked into Alexandria not as a provincial boy, not as a pretender, but as the uncontested master of Rome. And then, carefully, he erased the last threats to his image. Caesar Ion, the true blood son of Caesar and Cleopatra, was quietly executed. Rome was told, 2 Caesars are too many. With his death, no rival could claim Caesar's blood more directly than Octavian. Now, only Octavian remained. But when he returned to Rome, he did not crown himself king. He was too clever for that. Kings have been hated since the fall of Tarquin. Instead, he took the title Augustus, the revered one, granted by the Senate in 27 BCE. He claimed he was restoring the Republic, even as he stripped it of all power. He clothed tyranny in the robes of tradition, and Rome believed him. But the mask was still there. Augustus never allowed his past to surface. He built myths instead, myths of divine favor, myths of destiny. He was no longer the boy from Velletri. He was the son of a god, the chosen of Rome, the eternal Prince of Peace. Still, questions lingered. Why such obsession with burying the past? Why erase every rival, every reminder of his fragile bloodline? Did Augustus fear that if Rome saw the truth, that her first emperor was not truly of noble Roman stock, the entire empire would crumble like a house built on sand? Rome had always hated kings. The very word was poison. Yet under Augustus, Rome accepted something stranger, a man who ruled like a king, but called himself nothing more than the servant of the Republic. It was one of history's greatest illusions. And at the heart of that illusion lay the secret he had worked so hard to bury, his true origins. After Actium and the deaths of Antony and Cleopatra, Augustus became the master of Rome. But raw victory was not enough. He knew what happened to men who appeared too ambitious. Caesar's bloody corpse on the Senate floor was proof. If Augustus was to survive, he needed something more enduring than swords. He needed legitimacy. And so he began the second battle of his life, the battle against memory. He carefully constructed a story of himself as the destined savior of Rome. Coins declared him Divi Filius, son of the divine Julius. Statues showed him forever young, untouched by time, a figure between mortal and God. Temples rose not only to the gods, but to his family, tying his bloodline to eternity. But beneath the marble and propaganda, the old whispers still lingered. The Octavian of Velletri, his humble provincial roots, the truth that he was not Caesar's son by blood. These things were dangerous. They had to be erased. Augustus worked like a sculptor with a chisel, carving away inconvenient truths. He commissioned histories that glorified his rise, emphasizing divine signs and destiny. He promoted poets like Virgil, whose Aeneid linked Rome's founding to divine will, and by extension, to Augustus himself. In Virgil's verses, Augustus became the endpoint of fate, the ruler foretold since the days of Aeneas. It was brilliant. By controlling stories, he controlled reality. But the mask slipped at times. Some senators muttered that Augustus had destroyed the republic he claimed to save. Others remembered that he had once been a sickly, uncertain youth, elevated not by nobility, but by Caesar's will. The irony was sharp. Rome's first emperor, the man who shaped an empire of marble, may have had more in common with the people than with the old aristocracy. And maybe that was what frightened him most. For if Rome ever saw him as just another man, as just Octavius of Velletri, the illusion would collapse. So he doubled down on myth. He passed laws promoting morality, tying his rule to a vision of Roman virtue. He reformed the calendar, religion, even the Senate itself, so that everything bore his mark. He made himself the father of Rome, Pater Patri, yet always pretended it was Rome that had given him this honor, not he who had seized it. By the time of his death in 14 CE, the transformation was complete. Augustus was no longer a man with a past. He was a god, a legend, the eternal Augustus. But history is stubborn. Beneath the marble, questions remain. Why did he erase so much of his family's record? Why did he execute Caesar Ion, a child who posed little immediate threat? Why did he cling so desperately to the title son of a god, when he knew it was built on adoption, not blood? Perhaps the answer is simple. Rome was an empire built on stories, and Augustus was the greatest storyteller of them all. His empire stood not on stone or steel, but on belief in him. And to maintain that belief, the truth had to die. So was Rome's first emperor truly divine? Or was he a man who built an empire on lies? If Augustus had revealed his humble origins, if he had admitted that Rome's golden age was forged not by God's son, but by a provincial outsider, would Rome have accepted him? Or would the dream of empire itself have shattered before it began? The truth is buried beneath the marble. And perhaps that was exactly how Augustus wanted it. Story finished.